Let's open our Bibles tonight to the book of Esther, chapter 3. Begin reading with verse 7, going down through verse 11. In the first year, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month to the 12th month, which is the month Adar. And Haman said unto the king Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom. Their laws are diverse from all people. Anytime somebody says all or everybody, gets suspicious. But their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand, gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Now previously we looked at Haman and saw what an evil, wicked man he was. We saw his narcissistic attitude. We saw his arrogance. We saw how he despised anyone that dared to not bow down to him and worship him as God. We saw that Mordecai refused to bow down because it violated the second commandment. It violated, in fact, a lot of things. It would be worshiping man as God. Mordecai said, I cannot do that, and he did not do that. He chose to do what was right instead of what would have been more expedient. Had he simply bowed down, this law would have never been written to kill the Jews. Had he simply bowed down, he would have never almost got hung on the gallows. All he had to do was compromise. He said, I will not do it. Whatever the cost, whatever the consequences, I will not worship any man as God. Because Haman was so full of hate, he was so full of bitterness toward anybody that did not reverence him as God, he decided not only to kill Mordecai, but to kill every single Jew in the entire kingdom of Ahasuerus. Tonight we look at something a little different. We look at how Haman decided when to kill the Jews. And I hope to make several points. Now let me say up front, and I will emphasize it again as we go through, I believe that God is in charge of all things. And by the way, more people misquote Romans 8:28 than quote it correctly. Most people say all things work together to good and stop, or at least pause somewhere along there. I challenge you, not now, but go home tonight, look that verse up. There are conditions for all things to work together for good. The conditions are all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. If you don't love God, and I don't mean puppy love, I don't mean, oh, I love you. I mean, if you don't love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, then that verse does not apply to you. The other part of that verse is all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. Then the other condition is to them that are the called according to his purpose. Have you been called by Jesus Christ? By that I mean, has the Holy Spirit drawn you? Has the Holy Spirit worked on you, drawing you, calling you to Jesus Christ? In other words, for those who are truly, genuinely saved. If you're not saved, all things are not working together for your good. If you don't love the Lord, all things are not guaranteed to work together for your good. So we see tonight that God is in charge of everything, and what many people call luck is actually a way of trying to make decisions without God. Why did I use the word luck? Because that's exactly what Haman is trying to do here. In the process that he used, he is looking for the luckiest day to kill the Jews. What day will be the luckiest for us to have the best success in killing all the Jews? He is seeking his God, not the true God. He's seeking his God. And let's get into the outline. It said that they, in the first month, January, our calendar, not theirs, but let's say January, he began to cast pur, that is the lot. The word pur is simply the same as casting lots. It's trying to decide the luckiest day of the year to kill somebody. Now, and I've been fascinated with casting lots for years. I have read all kinds of things. I've talked to a lot of people. When the Bible speaks of casting lots, how did they do it? What was involved? And I've heard lots and lots of ideas. And now, 15, 20 years later, I'm still as confused as I was 20 years ago. Some people have the idea that casting lots, and I read this in one of my commentaries, they would take a bag, or since I don't have a bag up here, they would take a bag and put all the months in the bag and then reach in and draw out the lucky month. That doesn't fit the context. They would then do it for all 31 days in the month, or 30 in the Jewish calendar. they would put 30 days in the bag and draw out the lucky bag. Kind of like we did for the door prize for the fireman the other day. I always have the top ranking officer draw the winning name. And I told him, I said, if you don't like the name that's drawn, he's your boss. Go to him, take it up with him. Next year, we're going to have to do it differently. You know why? The commanding officer, who is one of the brigade chiefs, reached in. I mixed them up, put them above his head. He reached in, drew his own name out. I don't know. I said, you gotta be kidding. The other people accused him of folding the end, something. That doesn't fit the context. If you're gonna reach in and draw 1 month, then you don't do it month by month and day by day. They started with January, and whatever they did, it ruled, nope, January is not your lucky month. So then they would go to February, and they would go through this casting of lots for February, and it's like, nope, February's not your lucky month. And they did that until they got down to December on our calendar, and then they did their Ouija board or whatever, and it said December is your lucky month. Most people think in Haman's case, because he was not worshiping the true God, that it was some kind of astrology involved in it. Some think it was something similar to a Ouija board. And, you know, you would go to this Ouija board, and I've never seen one. I take it back. I did see one time, but I've never used it. You go to this Ouija board and go through this mumbo jumbo witchcraft stuff, and it says yes or no. I don't, it's satanic, so I don't get involved. But January, nope. February, nope. Some people think that's how it was done. But whatever Haman did was full of superstition and devil worship. It was, in Haman's case, it was from the devil from start to finish. Now, we come to the New Testament. Casting lots is used by the first church to decide who is going to replace Judas. It says they cast lots. Between these two men, they cast lots to see which one God wanted to take the place of Judas. However it was done. Oh, by the way, it was also used to divide the clothes that Jesus wore. They stripped him down naked, hung him on the cross, and then they cast lots to see who got what clothes and who got what of his other things. However it was done, and I've often wished I knew exactly so that we could do it in some business meetings. However it was done, it took the measure out of any popularity. I've seen business meetings where, we need a deacon or trustee, whatever. So I hear, would you like to nominate somebody? I nominate you. No, can't do that. She doesn't fit the biblical qualifications. When you begin taking nominations, in 99.9% of all cases that I have ever seen, it ends up being more of a popularity contest. But, I really like you. I'd vote for you for deacon because I like you. Doesn't matter if you're qualified. Doesn't matter if you meet the qualifications of a deacon. It doesn't matter if that's who God wants. It's, I like you, I'm voting for you because I like you. I've often wished that somehow we could find out how they cast lots so that it takes it out of any personality. It takes it, by the way, the two men in Acts, they had to meet certain qualifications to be narrowed down to the two that the church eventually cast lots for. It takes it completely out of the hands of men. You don't get to say, wow, he's really a nice guy, or hey, he's rich. If we elect him deacon, maybe he'll give more money to the church. I've seen all of that happen. Whatever it was, it took it out of the hands of men. And casting lots was done in such a way that it was purely in the hands of God. They did it month by month and day by day, which I've already covered. Now, I want you to notice this was an ungodly man, a wicked man, using his false gods and some kind of satanic ritual to find their lucky day. But behind it all, God was still at work. The lot fell on the 12th month and the 13th day of that 12th month. Why didn't the lot fall on January? I've got a reason. Think about it. What would have happened had the lot fell on January and they only had a week to get the notice out before all Jews would be killed? Now, like I said, I've got a reason. But why was it that when an ungodly, wicked man used a satanic ritual with satanic means, why did it fall on the 12th month rather than the first month? Anybody think they have I'm not going to ask you, but you think you've got a pretty good reason? Okay, one out of all of us. God was working, I believe, to spread it out, to give the Jews time to band together, to give Esther time to intercede. God pushed it out so that there would not be a rush and Haman go out and start killing people. He had to wait 12 months. During that 12 months, a lot of things are going to happen. Now, God used a wicked man and a wicked method for a wicked plan to postpone the event for everything else to fall in place. Now, let me see if I can make this applicable to us. How many of you love to get stopped by a red light? Now, I have to be honest, there's been a few times I've prayed for the light to turn red. Usually because I need to text somebody and I can't do it while I'm driving. So, Lord, please turn the light red. So while the light is red, I can text, and by the time it turns green, I've got... But most of the time, I don't like red lights. I'm not a big fan of red lights. You know what red means around here? My wife and I were talking about this the other day. Somebody said something I didn't catch. I'm sorry? A red light, well, that's a good one. When I was with the police, I came up with a whole list of acronyms. Red means rev the engine and drive. Around here, nobody knows what red means. You know, red, they just go right through it like it was green. I stop. I don't want to get hit by somebody else who thinks red is green. But do you ever wonder why the other day I was going to one of my doctors, and I don't know how many traffic lights there are between my house and Cincinnati, but I hit every single solitary traffic light red between here and there. I don't think I missed a single light that wasn't red. Did you ever stop and think why God turned that light red? The other day I was almost late to a doctor. I checked my GPS. It took 22 minutes to get there. I gave myself 30 minutes. I got 8 minutes extra, but I did not count on 75 being backed up for 5 miles and losing 10 minutes in the process. Why was that traffic jam there at that time when I'm trying to get to the doctor on time? Why was that traffic jam there? You ever had a flat tire when you're running late? Frustrating, isn't it? I happen to think, and once I got this in my head, it helped me find a lot of purpose. I don't think red lights turn red just to aggravate me. Who controls the light, traffic lights? Oh, it's controlled by this little box over here, and it's got a timer, and when somebody hits that thing in the road, it trips the timer, and the timer is set, and I understand the mechanics of it. That thing in the road sends a signal to the box that sends a signal to the light and says, here comes Wilbert Ellis, turn red now. I happen to believe, and this has helped me tremendously. The light turns red, God's in control of the lights. It's no accident that the light turned red just as I was approaching. It's no accident that there was a wreck and traffic is backed up for, how far is it from the river to Mount Zion? 14, 15 miles. There's no accident that the traffic is backed up from the Brent Sprints Bridge all the way back to Mount Zion. I don't believe in accidents. The other day I actually caught every light green. First time that has ever happened. Boy, you were sure lucky. I don't believe in luck. I believe in God. And just as God controlled the casting of the lots to make sure that it was spread out 12 months in advance, God was in control of the casting of lots just as much as God is in control of the traffic lights, the traffic. Once you believe that God is in control and He has a reason for everything, you don't have to trust luck or fate. Whatever happens, rest assured God has a reason. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not God. I can't see the future. Half the time I can't see the present. Maybe that traffic light kept me from being in a wreck down the road. Maybe that traffic jam taught me, I'll find out tomorrow, taught me don't cut it to the last minute. I don't know what God is doing. I don't need to know. But I know that God was just as much in control with Haman casting lots as he is in traffic lights, traffic jams, flat tires, or some other thing that happens. Now, and by the way, this didn't happen overnight. When a light turns red, I stop and I just wait. Doesn't do any good to get mad. It's not going to change any faster. Doesn't do any good to blow your horn. The other day I was sitting at a red light and the light turned green, and as soon as it turned green, it goes green, honk, honk, honk. It's like, buddy, it just turned green. Get off my case. I wanted to drive super, super slow, but that would not be Christian. Once you accept, and in your heart and mind, God is in control, it takes a whole lot of stress off. Turns out my doctor was running late. I got there in plenty of time, and he didn't even know that I was running behind myself. Traffic lights, traffic, tires, anything. God may be slowing you down and postponing something into the future to get you ready for something else. Now, having gotten the date and the day, he now approaches the king. And I want you to notice in verse 8 how he approached the king. Notice there is a certain people. He doesn't name them. He doesn't say there are Jews that were brought over from captivity. He doesn't name them. And I think there's a reason for that. There is a certain people just scattered abroad. There's only a handful. There's not very many. Just a few scattered here and there. They're totally insignificant, and they're dispersed among the people in all the provinces of the kingdom. Just a handful of people scattered here and there. Nothing significant, nothing important. Their laws are diverse from all people. That's a lie. They're not diverse. They were diverse to his law. They were diverse from worshiping Haman, but their laws are diverse from everybody. There's nobody in the world that believes like they do. And they don't believe in keeping the king's law. I'm watching the clock. I am. They don't believe in obeying the law of the land. And I could go with that one. Let's move on. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. In other words, they are worthless. They're worse than worthless. It's a drain on the king. It's a drain on the king's finances. They're not worth anything. And you're never going to get anything out of them. It's not for the king's profit to suffer them to even live. They're a pain in the neck. They're rebels. They're disobedient. They don't give any contribution to the king's treasury. Whole kingdom would be better off if we just killed them. Then in verse 9, he appeals to the king's love of money. One of the things we know from history, if you can believe history, is that Ahasuerus was really fond of money. So Haman goes in and says, you know what? If it please the king to destroy all of these people, I will pay 10,000 talents of silver. Now, I tried to find out how much that would be in 2025 dollars, American dollars, how much that would be. And I couldn't figure it. I just, my mind, I could not convert it from silver, talents of silver, into American dollars based on current currency. But I did come up with some numbers. The numbers, probably based on what little we can figure, was somewhere in the billions of dollars. I can't even imagine a million, let alone a billion. It was a very large sum of money. I will pay the king just to allow me to kill these worthless, no-count people. Now, and I never thought of this until one of my commentaries asked the questions like, never thought of that. Where was Haman going to get that much money? It seems doubtful that he personally would have been worth that much. So the best idea is when you kill somebody, especially if you kill the whole household, you get whatever loot they had in their house. So he's thinking, perhaps, we're going to go in, after we kill them, we're going to go in and we're going to confiscate all of their earthly goods. And I figured that'll be worth at least several $billion. Well, the king grants permission. And this both scares me and also enlightens me. He trusted Haman so much. He never questioned, who are these people? He trusted Haman so much that he never questioned anything. He hears 10,000 talents of silver. Wow. Then he did something kings just didn't do. The king had a ring, a signet, And in order to make something official, he would take wax, melt the wax, put it on that paper, and then put his official seal into the wax. And the only way you would have to melt the wax. And when you melted the wax, you melted the king's signet. So basically, once he put his seal in it, it was permanent. My wife is a notary public, and she's got this thing called a seal. I don't know what it is, don't you? She signs it, puts all that information. Then she takes this thing, puts it on the paper, squeezes it, and it literally pushes the letters and symbol into the paper, and you can't get it out. It's permanent. King said, Haman, I trust you so much. I have so much confidence in you. Here's my official ring. Haman could have written anything he wanted to and sealed it with the king's ring. That's how much Ahasuerus trusted Haman. Now, I said it scares me. There is a danger in putting too much trust in man. I read it somewhere, the best of men is still man. He's still flesh and bones. He's still got a sinful nature. He is still a sinner. And there are some people that I trust wholeheartedly, but I wouldn't necessarily give them the password to my bank account and say, here's my bank account, I trust you. Now, I would trust most of you. I look around, I would trust most of you. You're wondering, who doesn't he trust? That's for me to know and you never to find out. He said, I trust you explicitly. I trust you totally. He's going to get burned very soon. And he found out you got to be careful who you trust. I've learned the hard way. You never tell anybody anything that you don't want repeated. Over the years, well, let me back up. When we were in Ohio, we had a man in our church who had the highest civilian clearance you could get with the U.S. government. His clearance was so high that if he ever had surgery, someone from the government would have to be in the operating room to make sure they didn't ask him questions and try to get answers that he was not allowed to give. He was talking one day, and I said, I'd give anything to know what's going on. He said, I can't tell you. I cannot tell you. And he never did. His pastor, well, so-and-so talked to me about a problem. I know I can trust you. You won't tell nobody what they're having. I've learned the best way to make sure it doesn't get out. I don't even tell my wife. I said, no, because not on purpose, but it can slip. So if somebody tells me something confidential, I don't even tell my wife. I don't tell anybody because unconsciously they can let it slip. So my point was, well, I can trust you. Put confidence in no man. Ahasuerus trusted Haman with the king's signet, which meant he could write any order, any command he wanted for any reason and signed it with the king's signet, and it became law. Now he does say, and in verse 11, there's no need in you giving that money to the king's treasury. You know, that's too much money. There's no need to give all of that money, which was a good thing. Now, how many of you are familiar with the law of unintended consequences? One. Just one? The law of unintended consequences. Give you an example. I decide we don't need water in the church. So I go out to the street and I turn the water off completely. No water to the whole building. Sounds like a pretty good idea. And then you stop and think, oh wait, nobody can flush the commodes. Oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't count on that. That's unintended consequences. I didn't think it through. I turned off the water without thinking of what the consequences would be. I decide to drain the water out of my car and drive it because I don't want to waste water. So I drain all the water out. I'm trying to save money on water. But the unintended consequences, or I burn my engine up. Oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't foresee that. When Ahasuerus granted permission to kill a bunch of misfits, he didn't think about the consequences. And by the time he does, it's almost too late. That's why, and I know sometimes y'all think I'm terribly hard, I'm terribly mean. That old meanie won't let me do X, Y, Z. Well, I have this habit. And again, I learned this the hard way. So I've learned most things. Okay. We let the Masonic Lodge use our church for their services. Oh, well, you know, what harm can that do? Wait a minute. What's it going to lead to in the future? If we open it for one, are we then obligated to open? Suppose they want to open a bar in here. We've already opened the door by it. You know, so when I say no sometimes, it isn't that it's a bad idea. It's just that once you open the door, you can never close that door again. Once you say yes to one thing, you've already opened the door. And there are consequences. So sometimes it's not that I'm against whatever you bring up. Sometimes it's like I'm already seeing what the law of unintended consequences can be. Had Ahasuerus asked a few simple questions, he could have avoided a whole lot of trouble. But he swallowed hook, line, and sinker everything Haman had to say. He swallowed it, never questioned it, signed a law without thinking of the unintended consequences of this law. Like I said, I've learned so many things the hard way. Well, why can't we do this? Because I have seen and experienced the unintended consequences. And I'm going to do everything in my power. Something comes up, I don't want to know what's right now. I want to know, are we opening the door to something we're going to regret later? Father, we come.